Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Women's Eye podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Gualandi. Hey, so if you're looking to build your money power, I have just the person to help you, financial planner Catherine Scrivano. Hi, Catherine. Great to
Hey,
see you.
Stacey. Great seeing you.
Well, I got to ask you, how important is it to have a financial safety net?
Incredibly important.
Incredible.
Unless you are the trapeze artist that goes without the net, those are few and far between. For most of us regular folks, having a safety net's important.
It's very important. And we're gonna get into that for sure. Because when dealing with a crisis, the last thing you want to do is shake pennies out of a piggy bank, which you've got one right there, don't you?
Well, I have a cynical version of a piggy bag. My jar says what the IRS missed. Uh,
Uh,
I we do not encourage you to hide anything from the IRS. Mine's full of change and cough drops. So,
Cough drops. That's good. Of course, of course. But it's
but
so funny.
in the event of a crisis, I don't want to be saying that this is how I'm going to resolve it. I would rather be more prepared than this.
This exactly, but it might kind of it's funny and it kind of makes you think about it too, because this is something that I do worry about all the time. And of course, you are here to explain how being prepared will really help when a financial emergency arises. But first, this episode of our Building Money Power series is brought to you by Casco Financial Group in Phoenix, Arizona. Casco's president, Catherine Scrivano, started her business to help people create the financial strength to achieve their dreams. So, Catherine, again, it's great to be with you. So, when talking about this, or like I said, this is something that I do think about a lot. You're going to really help us to understand what a cash reserve is, like how to build it, how to review your own assets, where to keep it, and how often to check it. But what exactly is a cash reserve? Is it pretty obvious?
Yes. Well, we often call it an emergency fund. And as the name implies, if something happens, for instance, you were to lose your job, or you had a health issue that kept you from working, or perhaps a family member needed you to take time off. As adults, we've all experienced it. If not ourselves, we know others who have had to interrupt their income. Or I don't know if your experience is the same as mine, but my appliances all conspired to go out of business at the same time. I
Oh yeah,
never
yeah,
just
yeah.
replaced a dishwasher without replacing the garbage disposal, the refrigerator, and the microwave,
Yeah,
So
because
those
of course
kinds
they're all
of things,
connected.
yeah, they talk behind my back. But it's inevitable that there are going to be times when we have financial issues for which we need to either be prepared or suffer the consequences of lack of preparation. And you and I are going to talk about the cash reserves from the perspective of an emergency fund, which is critical. However, I'd like us to also think about a positive potential for these dollars too, what I call the Emergency and Opportunity Fund.
Opportunity. Okay, it's a nice positive
Yeah,
spin
because
on it. Yeah.
again, as adults, we have all, I promise you, had a story we can tell about a time when an opportunity was presented to us that we couldn't take advantage of because we didn't have the resources. And we've got stories from investment opportunities or experiences. We have a client who, because she was prepared, was able to take advantage of an extraordinary opportunity to go to Africa.
Oh
And
wow.
it had
Yeah.
been a dream of hers forever. And this thing just landed in her lap. She had to make decisions very quickly. And guess what? She had the resources
To
and then
go.
came
Yeah.
back and shared all of her fabulous photos with us. So we, the strategy of preparing for an emergency doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but if we tag on that opportunity too, we
Yep.
can go into this with a positive attitude. No, good or bad, we're ready.
Yeah, exactly. And you're prepared either way for
Yeah.
sure. But how much is enough though to have? Because you always kind of hear that, oh, you need to have 6 months worth of, paychecks or salary or whatever to go. But what is it really based on?
Well,
And how
you're
much?
right. The boilerplate tend to log back and forth between 3 and 6 months
Okay.
of expenses, not necessarily income, but expenses. For instance, if you are laid off, you're not contributing to your 401k. There, certain taxes aren't being withheld. So chances are your net pay is not going to be the determining factor. It's really how much do you need to keep the ship running until you replace your income.
Yeah, keep the
Uh,
lights on.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, but three to 6 months is not a bad boilerplate idea. You can be thinking about a lot of things, though. For instance, do you have a mortgage that you're going to need to continue to pay? Do you have loans on which you make fixed monthly payments versus some, for instance, credit card debt, maybe for a couple months you're going to make minimum payments or smaller payments than you would otherwise. So how
Right.
much flexibility do you have in your monthly expenses? And in the case of potential disability, do you have disability insurance? If you have a policy, it's very common for them not to kick in no benefits until you've been out of work for 3 months.
Oh,
You
wow.
probably need to have 3 months
Months
of
of,
expenses put aside until your income can be replaced by the insurance.
yeah, I mean, there are definitely other factors too in terms of the job security, health, income, all that kind of thing too. But
Yeah,
bottom line, maybe this is very obvious, but without an emergency fund, if a crisis should arise, it could be really devastating, couldn't it?
sure, sure. And again, tend to go on a rant about payday loans, and I promise today is not that day. But people who find themselves in a position of having the emergency and not being prepared to deal with it, they then start doing things that they wouldn't otherwise do, like payday loans, or maybe you have to be nice to a relative that you wouldn't otherwise and ask them for some help. I mean, there's a lot of compromises that might have to be made as a result of being unprepared.
And it also too, it's something that you've mentioned in the past as well, that it's very empowering for a woman if she has reserves in place, that if she has to leave a negative situation, it's very empowering for her to be able to do that.
Can you
Yeah.
think about the difference between a woman who is in a job where she's not treated with respect, the whole Me Too movement?
Yeah.
A lot of times there was pushback saying, well, gee, why did she stay? I was confident that I knew the answer was because she couldn't afford to
Or
leave.
two. Yeah. Yeah.
And we've all known women who are in domestic relationships that are not healthy, but they can't afford to leave. So imagine the power of being able to say to whomever is not treating you with respect, I don't need to take this. You either treat me better or I have enough reserves to
Yeah.
move on. I
All
mean,
right.
what a difference in life that makes for you, for your children, for everybody involved. It's a critical thing, I think.
Yeah. And to have that cash reserve or those fund opportunity funds, how does one build their cash reserve? Are there some real,
Well, yeah,
standard operating procedure?
well, the first thing to do is recognize and commit to it. And then, like most things, we eat the elephant one bite at a time. So if once we've established what our goal is, the dollar amount that we need, we start planning to do this a little bit at a time. For those of us who are working and getting a regular paycheck, perhaps using payroll deduction to go into a bank account, a savings account, for instance, and that's money that's just earmarked for emergencies or our emergency and opportunity fund until we reach the dollar amount that we want. Some people don't have payroll deduction available to them. In that case, we suggest that you set up a systematic transfer from your checking account to a savings account at the same financial institution. They're all perfectly capable of doing that. But it's segregating those dollars that's the important part of it.
Yeah, and also I think there's obviously you might have to start cutting out some, frivolous expenditures. I do feel like I'm hemorrhaging money a little bit with some of the things that I buy that I'm just like, let's pull it back a little bit. But also using your money, it's a good time. No matter when you start, it's good to get money perhaps in bonds and those kinds of things, as
Well,
far
the
as
first
stock market and
the
all that.
well, we don't recommend stocks for this particular bucket of your financial plan.
Okay.
You're going to want to use instruments that are very predictable, very liquid, where you wouldn't have to pay any kind of a penalty for withdrawal, and safe, looking for FDIC insurance up to $250,000 in a financial institution, or perhaps using short-term treasury instruments that are guaranteed by the government. So those things are going to pay you a little more than just a regular savings account, not a whole lot
Okay.
more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is not the get rich part of your portfolio,
You're
but
right.
but you do want it safe and liquid. So we've talked about establishing how much you need and kind of the method as far as funding through payroll deduction or savings transfers, but then figuring out where does that money come from goes to your point. Perhaps there are some things that you decide you don't really need right now because it's so important for you to have this empowering, wonderful emergency and opportunity fund. So if you go out to eat twice a week, perhaps you say, nope, we're going to limit it to once a week until our fund has reached its goal. There's just a variety of ways that you think discretionary spending, if you agree with me that this is a really important endeavor, you'll find ways to limit your discretionary spending until you get the funds you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah, because I don't need that extra Christmas costume. It's like I can put that money into savings or at least just keep, yeah, just don't waste money. And also I buy food. I feel like I'm throwing food away too much, that I
Oh,
don't.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, that drives me nuts too. But also too, is there other resources? I know you talk about obviously seeing like a professional like yourself too that can help when it comes to any sort of loans and that kind of thing too,
Mhm.
perhaps, right?
Well, one of the things when people are looking at ways of funding, we encourage them to look at assets. Now, I mentioned transferring income sources, but look at some of the assets that you have. Maybe you have, for instance, jewelry that you
Yeah,
never wear, furniture that you
yeah,
don't use. If you were raised like me, there was that living room that nobody was allowed to go into and had all the beautiful furniture.
yeah.
Perhaps those kinds of things would be a source, selling them and putting that money and get that emergency fund going. The loans that I think you were referring to, as I mentioned, that many people have life insurance that have cash value built into it. And that could be a source of money for you. So that if you had that emergency or opportunity, you can contact the insurance company and often you can borrow against that cash value. So that there could be tax consequences. It's a little bit more complicated than simply running over to your local bank and making a withdrawal. But people tend to forget that that can be a source of cash reserves.
It's funny too. And when you pay off certain things, maybe just it's great that, okay, that's paid off, but maybe the money that had to pay
Yeah.
something monthly, you could keep doing that, but instead put it into a cash reserve. I think that's a really
Yeah.
great idea.
I always use cars as an example. And when folks tell me that they have paid their car loan, and my car is paid off, my first suggestion is not go replace the car. Drive that old paid off car for a little while,
Yeah.
but keep making the payment. Just make it to yourself. Put
Yeah.
that money into the account. That could be the source for your emergency and opportunity fund. That could be the source of paying for your next vehicle. Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be great if you were able to pay cash as a
Yeah.
result of
It's like I
having
got the
done
money
this?
already. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even if you just make a huge down payment and you still have to borrow, perhaps, because cars are very expensive, but you wouldn't have to borrow as much. So you've still got, you're not going to change your life a bit. You still have the same cash flow coming in and going out, but you're paying yourself instead of a lender.
Exactly. And it's always better. I always would hear that first, pay yourself first before you start
Hmm.
distributing money. And it's just so important. But also, too, this was kind of interesting is like if you have a windfall, like my husband won some money gambling. It's like you want to. That's bonus money, or I call it buckstasy. That's something that you weren't expecting. So put that immediately into a reserve.
You
I
know,
don't
for
encourage gambling, but if
right,
you
well,
get
and
money that way,
yeah, any kind of a windfall or even a raise.
yeah.
If you're working and you get a raise, I suggest you commit to saving half of your windfall or your raise
Okay.
because you should enjoy the windfall. You should enjoy the fruits of your labor and being acknowledged. So, I mean, we still want to have a great life, but on the other hand, if you can enjoy it with half of that money and fund what I think you and I agree, this emergency opportunity fund
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
so meaningful. So that's where I'm the evangelist is saying, let's everybody commit to doing this and having one. And then we'll back up and we'll talk about the strategies and the opportunities for doing it. But let's give ourselves this wonderful gift in the holiday season. Make it your New Year's resolution. I've got all of the boilerplate names for this, but let's just commit to doing it. All of us have sufficient reserves to get through an emergency, take
Yep.
advantage of an opportunity, and not let anyone treat us with anything less than the respect we deserve. That's not a bad aspiration.
Yeah. It's the trifecta right there. I know, I love it too. But you mentioned reviewing like your assets, but that could also be like, I guess if you antiques, art,
Sure.
stamp collections, any of those kinds of things. Is it something like reevaluate whether you want to hang on to those? I guess, right? Is that because
Well,
there's
what
some
we
sentimental value in a lot of these things as well.
sure, and that's always going to be the case as part of your financial planning is, what is the sentimental value versus the monetary value? But if our goal is to create this fund, looking at resources other than just our income. For instance, many people have investments, let's say it's a mutual fund that pays a dividend or a capital gain and reinvests. Perhaps instead of reinvesting, you carve out that gain or those dividends and put those in the bank and start letting that be the source of the seed for your emergency fund. So that doesn't interrupt your monthly cash flow, but is still getting it there. So there's a lot of ways to just kind of put these pieces together. I also like to have folks, maybe you have more than one account. If
Yeah.
you've designated part of the account to emergency and part to opportunity, we have clients right now who are newly married. They hope to buy a home. As you can imagine, it's challenging
Oh,
to
yeah.
buy in today's market, but they have committed to taking $2,000 every month from their joint checking account, put that into the savings account that is absolutely earmarked to help them purchase a home. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight, but I'll tell you what, they've started,
Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
getting closer. And 5 years from now, if they buy a home, or 5 years from now, they're sitting there going, you know what we should have done 5 years ago is started saving systematically.
Exactly. But here
You know,
at that point they'll have this big chunk
yeah,
of change. Like we can put it down on a house.
yeah,
But you mentioned like in today's climate or whatever, but it is, I mean, with so many people living paycheck to paycheck too, is this obviously they would be devoting less, I suppose, to a
sure.
savings, but for those people that are really struggling. So it's still you're encouraging them because I think a lot of people are actually in an emergency crisis right now, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, things are very hard. Costs are going up as we sit here.
Yeah.
We are in a very challenging economic time, but these things are going to be true regardless of whether or not we're taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So even if you're not able to accomplish the goal of having 3 months of expenses in an emergency fund, maybe you can't accomplish that for a year, maybe 2 years. Okay, so we're going to be here in 2 years
Yeah. Yeah.
and look back and think, oh, gee, we really didn't need to go out to eat as often, or we didn't, we find ways if we think it's important. And
Exactly.
I think that this is critical.
It's so important. Where also important is where to keep that cash reserve. You've mentioned, setting up maybe an account for opportunity or emergency or both. But yeah, where besides your basic savings account, what are some other good options?
Well, most financial institutions offer high yield savings accounts. Now, there's going to be some kind of a minimum. My guess is most of them about $1,000. So once you reach that $1,000 point, don't be satisfied with the low return in a regular savings account. Look around and see if there's opportunities for higher yields. I mentioned treasury bonds, certificates of deposit. There are a number of things that you can do. You're not going to get what we would call great returns. This money is not intended to make you wealthy, but I would like to stress that the money is liquid, easy for you to get to without paying
That's the
any kind
key,
of a
right?
penalty, and that it has some kind of a guarantee, whether by the federal government or the federal insurance. Credit unions also have insurance, and they tend to have really good rates. They're very good to their members because they're not for profit. So
Oh,
there's plenty of places, but again, make sure the criteria is safety and access.
yeah. Now you had mentioned, that you were talking about the folks wanting to purchase their home, but
Yeah,
and so they're doing really well though, as far as they're getting
they are.
towards that goal.
Well, time has gone by and make it sound like they just started. They're probably into it a year and a half, and they've got a substantial amount of money, but they're just smart enough to know, even if they don't know specifically what the dollar amount is, they know that they're going to get to a point where they could say, "Hey, there's some real dollars here. Let's see what we can do with them."
Exactly. That
And they're
they're
absolutely
sitting
committed to
prettier.
buying that house. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
it's
and I
so
hang out with a lot
exciting.
of younger people too, so we're always kind of encouraging, like, okay, this is the age to start doing this, start saving here, doing this, investing in that, or what,
Yeah.
it's obviously because you're so good at saying it's never too late, but also it's starting in your 30s and 40s, you really start getting into that mindset. So
You can make a lot of mistakes if you have time on your side. You can
exactly.
you can learn a lot of lessons that, oh, don't do that again. However, if you started early enough, you can take a step backwards and say, okay, never going to make that mistake again, and then continue to move forward. Where if you delay, then you need to get it right.
You'll be
There's a lot of
scrambling. Yeah,
pressure. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
How often do we review our cash reserves? Is this something monthly or yearly? What do you recommend?
Well, I still love the monthly money meeting, and I tend to present that as if it's always between couples. It can certainly be between you and yourself, but I love it where once a month you kind of check in and just measure your progress toward your goals.
Okay.
So if you've established a dollar amount and you say this is 3 months of expenses and I ultimately want to reach this dollar amount, see how you've done in the last 30 days moving toward that. Reward yourself, pat yourself on the back for the progress you've made. Forgive yourself if you were distracted and did something else, and then recommit.
Yeah.
But I like frequent touch points because that keeps the goal front and center and reminds us of why we are doing it. We like to do an annual overhaul where we do a real deep dive into everything. If there have been no significant changes in your life in the meantime, annually is probably fine to really dig into it deeply. And that's the time when you'll probably say, oh, look, we've managed to save a substantial amount of money. Let's see if we could move it around and earn a little bit more on it. But again, safety and liquidity are still critical for these particular dollars.
Yeah. I mean, and how often do people come across, even maybe clients, people have those emergencies pop up. It does
Well,
it. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you can't
We
measure
don't
it.
plan for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, I know if one of my appliances goes, that I should just be prepared for the tsunami. That's always been the case for me, and I've talked to others too.
Yes.
Seems to be a rule of three. You can never replace less than three appliances, whether
Exactly. And
they're big
especially
or
like
small.
our house is, it was 2007, I think. So it's like, yeah, at some point, all the things,
Yeah,
they're
right.
all going to come crashing down.
Exactly.
And of course, hopefully, there's health crises and those kinds of things. But if there were three top takeaways for people, listening to this and understanding what a cash reserve is and an opportunity fund is, what would you say like the three most important things are for people to keep in mind?
I'm tempted to be kind of a smarty pants and say it's important, it's important, it's important.
Right, right, right.
The most important things I think are to recognize how empowering this is, how sleep at night is worth a lot. It's really critical, and just encouraging everyone to commit to doing this for yourself. You pay all of your creditors, you pay your bills, you pay your utility bills, you are a responsible person. Treat yourself with as much respect as you do those other creditors. So committing to it, reviewing your progress, like I say, congratulate yourself when you succeed, forgive yourself when you fail, and just commit to, and keep moving on. And I promise you that the meal that you missed as a result of doing this, that fancy dinner that you didn't go out to, would be in the rearview mirror anyway by the time you started looking at things. So, but if you can see the increase in your savings account balance, you get to keep that.
I
So
mean,
just,
that definitely, that's your money. Yeah.
yep,
I mean, that's got to be the best thing I think for people too, to understand what, that feeling of that pressure is off your shoulders, I think, because you're always feeling like, hey, I'm prepared, just in
yep,
case.
that's that sleep at night fund. And then, another suggestion is find an accountability partner.
Oh,
And,
mhm.
we tend to be reluctant to share our financial circumstances with our friends and family, and that's
Right.
kind of a whole
And they
other
don't need to know
topic.
all the details, right?
No,
It's just,
no, but find a buddy in which you say, let's both of us commit to saving an amount that we have established, whether we share or not, but just remind each other how important this is and congratulate each other when you say, you know what, I set a goal of saving this much this month, and guess what, I met it,
yep.
or I didn't. Let that other person reassure you that all is not lost. You'll just pick yourself up and start over and do it again today.
Yeah. Yep. The point is just start now.
Yep. Well, I've
Exactly.
always said the best time to invest was yesterday. The second best is today. And that's
Today.
true with pretty much all of our financial decisions. Is the delay is more expensive than any of us can afford.
Yeah. No, that's great. You're always good with the things, those little things that we can put our minds to. So, well, Catherine, thank you so much for all of your insight and expertise once again on just the notion of how important it is to have cash on hand in case of an emergency or in case of a wonderful opportunity. So we thank you
Yeah,
so much. It's great. If you
glad to be
want to,
here.
oh, this is great. I love having you here. So to learn more about Catherine and her financial tips, just go to thewomenseye.com. And there you'll also find our books, 20 Women Changemakers. Just shop wherever you buy books, and changemakersbook.com, and 20 Women Storytellers at womensstorytellersbook.com. I forgot my books, but just check the website. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our newsletter where you can win all kinds of fun goodies, and our YouTube channel. Just let us know your comments, questions, likes, dislikes. We just would love to hear from you no matter what. But again, thanks, Catherine. I'm gonna go put my pennies in the bank. How to so. I
Get a
appreciate
jar.
I need a jar. I need a jar. So, and also thanks to all of you for tuning into the Women's Eye podcast. Keep building your money power. I'm Stacey Gualandi. Remember, it's the world as we see it.